Hey, what's up guys? So in the last video, we went over the best options that are available for different Dashcam battery packs. That said, there's a lot of other options that are available too. And one of the really nice things about some of the alternatives is they can be cheaper than the batteries that I covered yesterday. Those ones do retail for around $350 to $400, and obviously not everybody's going to want to spend that level of money. I do think those are some of the best options that are available, but what about some of the alternatives that might actually wind up being a better fit for you? For example, there's smaller battery packs that have fewer features that do cost less money. You've got these portable lithium-ion battery packs that are popular for charging phones. These do work, but there's some issues actually using these for dash cams. You've got other battery technologies like deep cycle batteries, which can oftentimes cost you less money. You can do DIY solutions with lithium iron phosphate batteries. We'll talk about that. There's even stuff you can experiment with like using solar panels. I've done some experiments with this too. And so in this video, I kind of just want to run through like some of the different options that you can use to power your dash cams. There's many, many different ways of doing this. And let's kind of go over some of the different options. And again, just to help you decide which solution is going to be best for you. So let's begin by talking about some of the off-the-shelf solutions. If you don't want to drop the $350 to $400 for one of these options, what if you want maybe a smaller battery to save some cash? Well, there's a variety of different options here from many different manufacturers. Some of the most popular ones, you've got the BlackView B112. This retails for $159, and it's got a 3,000 milliamp hour capacity. If you'd like a slightly larger capacity battery, there's the ThinkWare iVolt Mini. This retails for $209, but it's got a 50% larger capacity at 4,500 milliamp hours. Then stepping up some more, you've got the BlackView B124X. This retails for $329, and it's a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. Plus, it adds some additional features like Bluetooth and expansion battery support. Then the next step up is going to be to the batteries that I covered yesterday. These ones all offer a capacity of 7,500 milliamp hours. So they've got the largest capacity, the largest runtime out of all the different options here. And also a quick correction from yesterday's video, the ThinkWare iVolt Extra, this one only supports 12 volt. In the video, I actually mentioned it supports 12 and 24 like the BlackView. That was actually incorrect. It was my mistake when taking my notes initially. Thanks to Retro Car Guy 530 for catching that one. So if you want 24 volts, it's the BlackView B130X is the only kind of the best three that supports that. Now, Egen, the company that makes these battery packs, they've got a bunch of other options that are available too. Some are smaller, some are larger, some are only sold overseas. For example, the PowerCell 8 that we talked about overseas, that's referred to as the Neo 8 Plus S. And then if you want even larger capacity batteries, they make 9,000 milliamp hour batteries. And if that's not enough, they've also got batteries that are over 20,000 milliamp hours. Plus, you can also get expansion batteries if even that is not enough too. And speaking of different size battery packs, let's move on and talk about some of the kind of portable USB battery packs like this that are popular for maybe charging your phone on the go. These all have USB ports as well, so you could literally just plug in a USB-powered dash cam into one of these and use it for parking mode recording. Plus, these are all quite a bit cheaper too than like the dedicated ones that I talked about before. Additionally, these portable battery packs are quite a bit smaller too. They use different battery technologies. This is going to be lithium ion. This is going to be lithium iron phosphate. But there are a couple important reasons why you're going to want to use a lithium iron phosphate battery instead of a lithium ion battery. Now, if we do kind of a head-to-head comparison here, this is a $100 battery pack. This is a $350 battery pack. So obviously 3.5 times more expensive, right? And they're actually roughly the same capacity. It sounds a little confusing at first because this one is listed as a 26,800 milliamp hour battery versus this is a 7,500 milliamp hour battery. But they do some of that stuff differently. This is at 12.8 volts. This is at 3.7 volts. And if you run the numbers, both of the battery packs are just under 100 watt hours or so. And so on a level playing field, they're going to be roughly the same capacity. But the lithium ion, just it's a more energy dense type of battery. It's going to be smaller than kind of your lithium iron phosphate batteries. And so there's definitely some advantages here in terms of both cost and obviously size too. Now that said, there's a couple key reasons why you're going to want to use something like this instead of one of these. One of the biggest reasons actually has to do with safety. For example, when your car is parked outside, it's going to go through some pretty extreme temperatures, right? Both cold and hot. Let's say you're parked in the hot sun, it's going to get really hot in your car. These lithium-ion batteries have a smaller range of temperatures that they like, that they're happy in. Lithium iron phosphate can handle much larger temperature extremes. Additionally, you're going to run into issues with like these things. When they start to overheat, they can actually have thermal runaway issues, and they're much more likely to lead to fire and explosions. And you'll actually see issues with that with phones and laptops and a variety of different electronics that use lithium-ion batteries. And so for safety reasons, if nothing else, the lithium iron phosphate battery technology used in these dedicated dashcam batteries are going to be a much better choice than using a lithium-ion battery. Now, the next advantage here is actually charge speed. This takes about an hour to fully recharge from dead. This particular one, again, roughly the same capacity, just under 100 watt hours, takes over 3 hours to charge, and that's with USB power delivery. They do make some newer ones now that can recharge in like 2.5 hours or so, but realistically, I mean, that's for most people probably not going to be fast enough. Something like an hour, I mean, even that you may not go on a full drive, but being able to charge quickly is really important with these batteries. And so something I've experimented with in the past is actually using multiple of these batteries. I have this kind of weird obsession with batteries. I don't know, but basically what I would do is I would have one charging at home, and then when I'm ready to drive, I'd go pop it in the car, use it as needed, and then when it's depleted, I'll just grab the other battery. And I'm kind of going back and forth between charging at home and using one in the car. Kind of annoying to do day to day, but it would technically work. Now, another one of the reasons of why I kind of have to do that is the lack of pass-through charging. You see, these battery packs are designed to charge themselves or output power, but not both simultaneously. And so if you've got it in the car charging, it can't also power your dash cam at the same time. You actually need to press the button to turn it on and start the charging process. Now, that said, there are other battery packs that do offer pass-through charging. And so those ones, you can have it in your car and it could charge itself and it could power the dash cam simultaneously. Got to make sure you don't have to do anything to turn on the power output and stuff and whatnot. So again, there's a variety of different options here. But even if, let's say you select one of these batteries that offers the pass-through charging so that you could use it in the car, you're still going to run into some of the issues with the slow recharge speeds and, most importantly, I'd say, the safety issues. These things could potentially explode and, start fires in your car, which obviously isn't good for anybody. Now, also when it comes to longevity, that's going to be a difference here too. You see, these lithium-ion batteries are typically rated for maybe around 500 charge cycles of charging and discharging, versus the lithium iron phosphate ones are designed for thousands of cycles charging and discharging. And so while these are cheaper, if you want to use it as a dedicated dashcam battery pack, it's certainly not going to last as long as something like this that's designed to actually go through many more charge cycles. And so for a variety of reasons when it comes to safety, practicality, longevity, etc., I do find that the dedicated solutions would be the way to go. And then finally, one last thing to mention is these also require nickel and cobalt to be created, versus these ones don't. And so these are actually much better for the environment too in the manufacturing process. And so speaking of, different battery technologies, there's a variety of other ones that are available too. For example, we can take a look at your traditional lead acid batteries. There's some trucks and RVs that actually support not just one, but 2 battery packs. So you've got one to actually start the vehicle, and then a second one to handle all the accessories for lights and radios and whatever else you've got installed in the vehicle. And so that can be really useful. So you've got a separate dedicated battery just to power everything else, and you don't risk potentially draining the main battery that you need to actually start the vehicle. Now, these lead acid batteries, they're typically designed as starter batteries, right? They're designed to output a ton of power really quickly to help start your truck or your car. Dash cams actually work kind of the opposite. Instead of needing a ton of power really quickly, they take a little bit of power, but for a long period of time. And that's not really what lead acid batteries are optimized for. That said, there is another battery type that actually works better for this application, and they're going to be your deep cycle batteries or your marine batteries. And with deep cycle batteries, you've got a variety of different versions. You've got your flooded lead acid batteries, as well as your AGM batteries. The AGM deep cycle batteries are typically preferable because they are actually able to be recharged much faster. Not as fast as lithium iron phosphate, but still faster than the flooded lead acid variants. Lead acid variants. Now, as far as how far you can drain the batteries before it starts to damage the batteries or affect their longevity, this is going to vary too. Your traditional lead acid batteries, they recommend draining no more than 80%. That's why a lot of these dash cams have kind of voltage cutoffs and stuff. You can adjust that specifically for different batteries and how far you want to drain it. Now, AGM batteries, like your AGM deep cycles, they recommend going no farther than 50% drain. Lithium iron phosphate, you can go down to 20% or more, so you can actually get a lot more of the power out of them. Plus, they're a lot better in terms of how many cycles they can go through. Again, AGM batteries, you get a couple hundred cycles or so. Lithium iron phosphate are rated for several thousand. And so, of course, there's a variety of different battery technologies that you can use. There's pros and cons to all of these. I'm not saying lithium iron phosphate is the best or the only. There's many different ones that you can use, and a lot of people have had success and they're really happy with their deep cycle batteries. That's a popular option as well. Now, one thing that's really interesting is you can actually find lithium iron phosphate batteries just standalone, not sold as a dedicated dash cam battery pack. And interestingly, they're also quite a bit cheaper than the dedicated ones too. And this is going to start getting us into some of the DIY solutions. Every time I do a video on dedicated dashcam battery packs, invariably in the comments, there's always people who are like, hey man, these are super expensive. I'll just DIY it. Awesome. So let's actually get into that next. And so if you go look on Amazon, you can find a 128 watt hour lithium iron phosphate battery for $45. There's also another one that's available for 154 watt hours, about 50% larger capacity than the dedicated ones that I talked about before. And this is only $42. Now, these types of batteries, size-wise, they are going to be a little bit different. For example, one advantage of these dedicated Dashcam battery packs is they tend to be thinner, which is really nice if you want to install it, say, like under your passenger seat or something. And those cheaper options that I just talked about, they're going to be roughly the thickness of 3 of these dedicated Dashcam battery packs stuck together. Not as wide as these are, but roughly this height. So for that reason, it's not going to work for like stuffing under a passenger seat as easily, but it might be a great option for like installing, say, in your trunk area or perhaps in your engine bay. Now, something else to consider about these batteries is they're just the batteries itself. If you've got it plugged into a car, like let's say you're using your starter battery or something, you've actually got like inputs and outputs that are actually wired into your car. And so like your starter battery, it's actually hooked up to the vehicle alternator to charge while you drive. And then as far as outputs to run back to your dash cam, you can hook it up either to your fuse box or to your cigarette lighter. So these actually have additional wiring and circuitry and whatnot to create both your inputs and outputs. Same kind of thing with like these dedicated dash cam battery packs too. If you take a closer look at them, so that's going to be our input to plug in, there it is, to your fuse box, and then you've got your output right there to go back into your dash cam. You've got other stuff here like a USB port. You've got kind of voltage controls to choose, current controls to choose how much power is taken in, expansion ports and whatnot, but fundamentally you've got inputs and outputs. If you've got just the battery itself, you just have a positive terminal and a ground. That's it. You're going to have to actually have some additional circuitry to handle your inputs and outputs. You're going to have to take care of the wiring and whatnot. That's something I'm really curious about, that I'm pretty rusty on my like circuit design stuff, and that's actually something that I'd be curious to learn a little bit more about, is like creating all this kind of stuff. Also, safety is going to be really, really important with this kind of stuff. Like, it's easy to create something, but then it could potentially break and cause an issue in your car. And so for that reason, I'm a little skittish of actually kind of experimenting in my own car. But let's say I kind of, I've got a nice design that I put together and I create and I do a tutorial and all this kind of stuff to share with you guys, which I would love to do. In the back of my mind, I'm also a little concerned of like, what if I forget to include some safeguards? And then like, let's say you go and create the same thing, you follow the instructions, but you put it in your car and it fries your electrical system or something. And I'm like, man, so the last thing I'd want to do is actually like DIY something or share instructions in a way that can actually cause damage. It's really easy to mess something up when you start creating your own electronics like this. That said, it's certainly doable, and I don't think it would actually be that complicated to do. And so something I'm actually really curious about is, for those of you guys who've actually created a system like this, let's say with your own like deep cycle battery or whatever else, let me know down in the comment area. I'd love to know kind of the schematics as far as how you took care of the wiring, the parts list that you used, even some things with the wiring. I know Retro Car Guy 530, he did some testing with the different Dashcam battery packs, and a lot of these actually have different thicknesses for the input wires. Some of them use like 16 gauge wire, some of them use 14. I've seen people even switch to like 12 gauge wire. And the idea is like if you go to larger wire, you've got less resistance, it can get more current going through, and basically helps to keep the temperatures down and avoid some like heating issues, overheating issues and whatnot. And so kind of the larger wires, that can be helpful as well. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get into here when it comes to the DIY stuff. I think it's a lot of fun, but I don't have the full like expertise and experience and honestly comfort to like do that myself yet or share it with you guys, but it can totally be done. So if you guys are experienced with it, you know exactly how to do it, I would love to learn more. And speaking of which, a quick update while I was actually editing this video, a shout out to Gabe Ramirez, who left a comment pointing me to a pair of tutorial videos by Provo Beast Audio Installation. The first video goes over how to wire in the second battery into your vehicle, as well as another video that goes over how to use a battery isolator to keep the two batteries separated. And I'll link both of these videos down in the video description. And again, if you guys have some additional resources and more information, great tutorials, please let me know. I can add those to the description too. And then finally, speaking of experimentation, another thing that I've played around with is the idea of actually adding solar panels to the car for like extended parking recording. So let's say I drive somewhere, I've got my car parked for an extended period of time, I need more than like a day or even a week of parking recording, whatever else. You can add a solar panel to the car and actually get some extended parking recording. Well, I've played around with a couple different methods of this, and let's go ahead and talk about this next. So starting off, I've got a number of these like portable solar panels that are kind of fold up. They're designed for camping and being lightweight and stuff. But the nice thing is they actually output to USB ports. And so it makes it really convenient to just plug a dash cam directly into it. I played with some setups like this a couple years back, and I found the results to be pretty hit or miss. Obviously it's not going to work at night because there's no sunlight, but I found when the sun starts to come out, it doesn't always provide enough power for the dash cam to even turn on properly. Or sometimes, let's say you've got it powered on, but then maybe the clouds start to vary or whatnot. Maybe the clouds come out, that can actually cut the power and the dash cam will then start to turn off. I found that the dash cam that you choose can be very important. Some of them actually do a good job of turning on when like the sun comes back out. Others do not turn on themselves. I've also found that there's some dash cams where you can have the solar panel installed in your car in a parking garage. And even just that little bit of light is enough to power the dash cam. And so again, the results can be pretty variable here. Now, the next step was like, okay, well, I need maybe a bigger solar panel to collect more light. And I also want to get maybe like a voltage regulator so the power doesn't fluctuate as much. Well, I've also picked up like a larger 30-watt solar panel. And I like this as a solution to wire directly to my car battery as kind of like a battery tender, so to speak. And so the car battery is powering the dash cam. And then the solar panel can be used to actually kind of top off the car battery little by little. This didn't work as a solution to power the dash cam directly. Instead, I wanted to plug it into the car battery. And if you take a look at the video, you can actually see the cable actually running out of the window and down under the hood of the car. Now, there's some cars like my Audi that actually have the battery in the trunk, which is kind of convenient. That way I wouldn't have to like open the window or run anything like that. So obviously the way that you approach this is going to vary depending on the type of car that you use. Anyway, one of the issues that I found with this is it didn't actually give me a ton of power. I found that under full sunlight, I would get about 0.9 amps. That's it, less than 1 amp. And then when the clouds would come out, it would drop to like maybe 0.2 or 0.4 amps. So quite a substantial drop. Sometimes it would actually just stop outputting power altogether. And so while the solar panel could work to actually trickle charge the battery a little bit, it would still need to be a larger battery, or larger solar panel rather, to give the battery more power, especially if you've only got like however many hours during the day to keep the whole thing charging. Now, I know Panzer Platform over on the Dashcam Talk forums, he's experimented with a 50-watt solar panel. And he actually had it plugged into a Blackview B130X, which is nice because the solar panel was outputting 24 volts, and the B130X does natively support this higher voltage level. Unfortunately, though, he found he was only getting a little over 3 amps, which wasn't sufficient to actually charge the battery pack. These battery packs require a minimum of 5 amps to charge, and so what he would find is like it would try to charge the battery, it would start the charge process, but then shut off, and it would just keep cycling, trying to like charge, and then it would fail, then trying to charge, and it would fail, and so you would need a larger solar panel still. And so if 50 watts wasn't good enough, then I guess you'd have to go up to maybe 100 watts or something, starting to get into even bigger solar panels. And so if any of you guys would like to experiment with something similar, it looks like maybe starting around 100 watts would be a good starting place here as far as the minimum capacity or size here for the panels. Now, one thing you find with the panels is, again, this is going to be kind of just something like you would set up, maybe put it under like your windshield or something. It's not something you're going to leave connected 24/7 necessarily, unless you've got it maybe like permanently installed on the top of your RV or something. But if you're just going maybe on like a long trip or something, this could be another alternative as a way to maybe try to like top off your battery pack or give you additional power and stuff. One thing to consider is you're also going to want to account for the different wiring stuff that can happen. With any of these batteries, like if it sees, hey, I'm starting to get power coming in, it thinks you turned the car on, you started driving. And so it could actually tell your dash cam to switch over from parking recording to driving recording. And so then your parking recording stuff is no longer going to work properly. And so for that reason, you might want to actually consider with this using an output that is not ignition triggered, that goes to your dash cam maybe with just like a cigarette lighter that provides power only, doesn't do any sort of ignition triggered stuff. So that way, regardless of the power input going into your dedicated battery or not, the sun's out or not, either way, it's just outputting power continuously, and then the dash cam takes care of its own driving and parking recording switching stuff based on like GPS or G sensors or whatnot. So again, just kind of some ideas if you'd like to experiment with this kind of stuff. But either way, as you can see, there's many, many, many different approaches to doing this. My preferred solution is like just get a dedicated dash cam battery pack. I know they are pricier than some of the other options, but it's convenient, it's safe, it works well out of the box, and it's fairly plug and play. I mean, obviously you're still going to have to like wire it up and hook it up and whatnot, but compared to some of the other DIY solutions, it's much easier to use. Compared to the small like lithium-ion battery packs, they're much safer. They recharge way faster. You could definitely do something as far as like deep cycle batteries. I know there's people who like to go that route. So there's many different ways to do it. Easiest solution, just tap it into your car battery. My preferred solution, use one of the dedicated dashcam battery packs. I like the bigger ones that charge faster and give me longer parking record times. Get a smaller one if you want to save some cash. Cool. If you don't need the Bluetooth, you just need power. Great. There's options for that too. So again, there's many, many different options. And I guess on that note, down in the video description, I'll link to some of the discussion threads for these different options. If you guys have good references for different schematics for DIY solutions, or if you want maybe one of the smaller off-the-shelf solutions, I'll link to all of that kind of stuff down in the description as well. And so, yeah, well, this was fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Hope you're all doing well. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.